Welcome to the peaceful space of sleep-friendly science, where we gently unravel complex ideas, and tonight, we journey inward to ask one of life's most profound questions. Have you ever paused to wonder about the silent narrator inside your head, that constant, invisible presence you call you? Tonight, we gently explore this beautiful mystery, the elusive sense of self. Is it a ghost in the machine, or something even more wonderful? Now, settle in, take a deep breath, and let the soft sounds guide you as we begin tonight's journey into the unknown. Section 1. The voice in the quiet room. As the world outside grows still, let us turn our attention inward. Listen, not with your ears, but with that other, more private sense of hearing. Can you perceive it? A quiet, constant stream of thought, a voice that narrates the world from behind your eyes. It is perhaps the most familiar presence in your entire life, and yet, it is a profound mystery. This is the voice you call I. Right now, it is the voice that is translating these words from the screen into meaning inside your mind. It doesn't have a true sound, does it? It's not a vibration in the air. It is a silent articulation, a ghost of a voice that whispers without a mouth and is heard without an ear. It is the narrator of your personal film, the unseen architect of your day, the pilot sitting in a control room somewhere just behind your forehead, looking out at the world through two small windows. We feel, so deeply and intuitively, that this inner voice is us. It is the captain of our ship, the singular, unified point of consciousness that experiences life. When you stub your toe, it is this I that says, "Ouch, that hurt me." When you recall a memory, it is this side that says, "I remember," when this voice is the golden thread of continuity that ties your past, present, and future into the single, coherent story of a life. Without it, you would simply be a collection of disconnected moments, a ship without a logbook. Let's stay with this presence for a moment. Feel its texture. Sometimes it is loud, demanding, and full of worry. It rehearses conversations that haven't happened yet and replays arguments from long ago. It makes to-do lists and passes judgment. At other times, it is soft and poetic, marveling at the color of a sunset or the taste of a fresh strawberry. It is your most intimate companion, the one who knows all your secrets, because it is the one who helps you keep them. It is always there, the silent hum of consciousness in the quiet room of your skull. But let us ask a gentle question, a question that scientists and philosophers have whispered for centuries. Where, precisely, is this narrator? If we were to embark on a journey into the brain, with the most advanced technology imaginable, where would we find it? Imagine your brain as a vast, dark, and wondrous landscape. A living galaxy of 100 billion stars, each one a neuron, firing in silent, electric bursts. These neurons are connected in a network of such staggering complexity that it dwarfs all the communication networks on our planet combined. It is a universe within a cathedral of bone. As we drift through this inner space, through the dense forests of the cerebral cortex and the deep, ancient canyons of the limbic system, we search for the source. We are looking for the throne room, the CEO's office, the central command module where the self resides. We would expect to find a place where all the information gathers. A place where sight, sound, touch, and memory all converge to be experienced by a single entity. The command center where decisions are made and orders are sent out. But as we search this intricate, buzzing darkness, we find a startling truth. There is no throne room. There is no single place in the brain where it all comes together. There is no captain on the bridge. Instead, we find distributed networks. The experience of seeing a red ball, for instance, isn't processed in one spot. The redness is processed in one area, the roundness in another, the motion in a third. Your brain, like a masterful editor, seamlessly stitches these disparate signals together so quickly that you simply experience a red ball. It's a trick, a beautiful and convincing illusion of wholeness. The same is true for your sense of self. The feeling of being you is not a single point of light in the darkness. It is more like a constellation, a pattern of light formed by countless, distant stars shining together. Your sense of agency, the feeling that you are choosing to lift your hand, arises from one network of neurons. Your recognition of your own face in the mirror arises from another. The story of who you are, your personal history, is stored in yet other networks, scattered like fragments of a map across the vast terrain of your mind. This discovery is both unsettling and liberating. Unsettling because it challenges our most fundamental feeling about who we are. If there is no central me, then who is living my life? Who is it that feels joy and sorrow? And liberating because it suggests that the self is not a fixed, solid thing. It is not a noun, but a verb. It is a process, an ongoing story. So, let's return to that quiet voice. If it isn't a singular entity speaking, what is it? Perhaps it is the emergent sound of the whole orchestra playing together. It is the collective whisper of billions of neurons, all working in concert to create a coherent narrative, a useful fiction that helps you navigate the world. The brain, it seems, is a natural-born storyteller, and its greatest story is the story of you. Think about it for a moment. If you can observe your thoughts, if you can listen to that inner voice, then who exactly is the one doing the observing? This question opens a door into an even deeper mystery. It suggests that you are not the voice, but the space in which the voice occurs. You are the quiet awareness, the silent theater in which this inner monologue, this ghost in the machine, performs its endless play. The self is not a thing to be found, but a process to be witnessed. It is less like a statue, solid and unchanging, and more like a river, constantly flowing, constantly changing, yet always, somehow, maintaining its identity. For tonight, let's not try to solve this puzzle. Let's simply hold it. Let's appreciate the exquisite magic of it from a silent, dark mass of tissue. A universe of experience can bloom. That from a symphony of electrical sparks, a sense of I can sing itself into being. This constant, internal companion is not a simple fact, but a daily masterpiece of biological art. Section 2. Your brain, the master storyteller. That constant, internal companion, that daily masterpiece of biological art, is the work of a master craftsman. Your brain is not merely a processor of data like a computer. It is an artist, a novelist. Its most profound and lifelong project is the creation of a coherent, believable protagonist for the story of your life. That protagonist, of course, is you. Think of your experience of this very moment. The gentle weight of the air on your skin, the subtle hum of electricity in the room, the memory of what you did an hour ago, the faint feeling of hunger or contentment in your stomach. These are all separate, disconnected streams of information. They arrive at your brain as a chaotic blizzard of raw data, electrical signals from your nerves, chemical messages from your organs. And yet, you do not experience a blizzard. You experience a single, unified, and continuous present moment. This is the first magic trick of the storyteller. It is a weaver, sitting at a vast and ancient loom. It takes the fragmented threads of sensation, memory, and emotion, and in a flash, weaves them into the rich, seamless tapestry you call reality. It edits out the irrelevant details, the feeling of your clothes against your back, the sound of your own breathing, so that you can focus on the story. It is a film editor of unparalleled skill, taking billions of tiny, disjointed frames of perception and splicing them together into the smooth, flowing movie of your consciousness. But the storyteller's job goes far deeper than simply organizing the present moment. Its most creative work involves the past and the future. It is the sole author and guardian of your autobiography. And here, we discover something truly astonishing. Your brain will do almost anything to ensure that the story makes sense. It values a coherent narrative above all else, sometimes even above the literal truth. Have you ever misremembered an event, only to have someone correct you with details that suddenly feel more right? Or have you ever found yourself telling a story from your past and noticed that you subtly embellish it, making it a little funnier, a little more dramatic? This is not a moral failing. It is the storyteller at work, polishing the narrative. It believes that a good story is better than a messy collection of facts. Scientists have seen this storyteller in action in the most remarkable circumstances. In studies with patients whose left and right brain hemispheres have been surgically separated, a fascinating character emerges. Researchers have nicknamed this function the left brain interpreter. It seems to be a specific network, often residing in the left hemisphere, that has one primary job: to explain why. Its role is to watch what you do, and then, after the fact, invent a plausible reason for your actions and present that reason to your consciousness as if it were the original intention all along. Imagine this. A command is flashed only to the right side of a patient's brain, the side that controls the left hand but typically lacks the primary language centers. The command is simple: walk. The patient stands up and begins to walk. Then, the researcher asks the patient, through their conscious, language-producing left brain, "Why did you get up?" Now, the left brain has no idea about the secret command. It did not make the decision to walk. It is faced with the gap in the narrative. The body is walking, and the storyteller needs a reason. Does it say, "I don't know"? Rarely. Instead, the interpreter instantly confabulates. It creates a story. The patient might say, "Oh, I'm going to get a soda." The answer is perfectly plausible. It makes sense. It preserves the illusion that I am a rational being who is in complete control of my actions. The storyteller has filled the plot hole, seamlessly and instantly, to protect the integrity of its main character. It is the mind's press secretary, spinning every action to fit a coherent and purposeful narrative. This happens to you, in subtle ways, all day long. You might find yourself in a bad mood and your brain, searching for a cause, will land on the traffic you sat in this morning or a comment someone made yesterday. It constructs a reason because an unexplained feeling is a loose thread that threatens to unravel the entire story. You make an impulse purchase, and as you walk away, your inner narrator is already composing the perfectly logical justification for why you needed it. It is constantly working to make you feel like a solid, consistent, and rational self. This process is most profound when it comes to your memories. We tend to think of memory as a filing cabinet where we store perfect, pristine recordings of past events. But the neuroscience suggests something far more fluid and poetic. Memory is not a recording. It is a reconstruction. Every time you recall a memory, you are not pulling up an old file. You are reweaving the story from scattered threads of information stored across your brain. And each time you retell it, you change it slightly. You emphasize new details. You connect it to new emotions. Your past is not a stone tablet. It is a living document, and you are its editor, constantly revising. The person you were 10 years ago exists now only as a story, told by the person you are today. And the storyteller's main goal is to create a continuous thread, to convince you that the you of a decade ago is fundamentally the same you sitting here tonight. It does this by smoothing over the contradictions, by forgetting the versions of you that don't fit the current plot, and by highlighting the moments that suggest a clear, linear path to the present. So, the self, this feeling of being I, is not a thing that has a story. The self is the story. It is the ongoing narrative that your brain spins to make sense of a chaotic world. It is a beautiful and necessary fiction. It is your brain's way of giving its protagonist a sense of purpose, a past and a future. Without the story, you would be lost in the blizzard of the present moment. Let this idea settle gently. The voice in your head is the sound of your own personal myth being written in real time. It is a story designed to make you the hero of your own life. It is not a lie, but a creative truth, a functional and elegant solution to the problem of being a conscious entity in a complex world. The ghost in your brain is a master author, and its favorite subject is you. Section 3. The Ghost and the Machine. And what a convincing protagonist it is, this self that your brain so masterfully creates. It feels so solid, so real, so separate. This feeling is perhaps one of the most powerful intuitions we have. It is the deep, quiet certainty that you are not simply the sum of your biological parts. You are not just the whirring of the machine. You are the ghost that lives within it. This idea is as old as human thought itself. Philosophers and poets have long spoken of a division between the body, the physical, temporary vessel, and the mind or soul, the ethereal, enduring essence. The body is the shell. You are the pearl within. The body is the house. You are the warmth and light that fills its rooms. It is the sense that you are an awareness that inhabits your body, looking out through your eyes as if from a hidden chamber. You feel the aches and pains of your body, but they are happening to you. You experience the world through your senses, but you are the one doing the experiencing. This is the classic ghost in the machine, a beautiful and compelling metaphor for the human condition. And its appeal is profound. It gives us a sense of dignity, a feeling that we are more than just clever animals. It whispers of a self that is inviolable, a core of being that cannot be touched by the decay of the flesh. It is the source of our feeling of free will, that the ghost can pilot the machine as it wishes, making choices that are not predetermined by mere chemistry. It carries the gentle hope of permanence, the idea that when the machine finally powers down, the ghost might simply float free, continuing its journey. It is a comforting and deeply human story. And for most of human history, it was the only story that made sense. There was no other way to explain the vibrant, inner world of consciousness. How could mere matter, the stuff of rocks and water, produce a thought? How could a collection of cells create the feeling of love, the ache of regret, or the beauty of a line of poetry? It seemed impossible. There had to be something else. A spark of the divine. A non-physical mind breathed into a physical form. Yet, as we continue our gentle journey into the landscape of the brain, a different kind of story begins to emerge. It's a story that doesn't necessarily erase the ghost, but instead suggests it is tied to the machine in ways we never imagined. Science, in its quiet, methodical way, has been tapping on the walls of the machine, listening for the ghost, and what it has found is a perplexing and intimate connection. The evidence begins with a simple, humbling observation. If you change the machine, you change the ghost. Consider the brain, this 3-pound organ of soft, fatty tissue. It is the most complex machine in the known universe. And it is fragile. When a part of this machine is damaged through injury or illness, the self, the ghost, is often profoundly altered. A person who is once patient and kind can become impulsive and irritable after a trauma to their frontal lobes. The ghost's personality, it seems, is written in the very wiring of the machine's hardware. Or think of the tragedy of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. As the physical structures of the brain begin to wither, as the connections between neurons fray and dissolve, the ghost begins to fade. Memories, which form the bedrock of our personal story, are lost. The thread of continuity that binds the self together unravels. The person they were, their unique personality and history, seems to recede, even as their body remains. It is a heartbreaking demonstration that the ghost we feel ourselves to be is profoundly dependent on the health and integrity of its biological home. The spirit seems to falter when the vessel cracks. The connection is even more subtle, more intimate than that. The ghost is swayed by the slightest chemical tides within the machine. A tiny shift in the balance of neurotransmitters like serotonin or dopamine can change your entire outlook on the world. It can lift the fog of depression or cast a shadow of anxiety over a sunny day. The food you eat, the quality of your sleep, the hormones that course through your veins, all these purely physical processes have a direct and powerful influence on your mood, your thoughts, your decisions, your very sense of who you are. A cup of coffee can make the ghost feel sharp and focused. A glass of wine can make it feel relaxed and expansive. It seems this ethereal presence is remarkably susceptible to the material world. This leaves us in a place of profound wonder and paradox. Our deepest intuition tells us we are separate. All of our scientific observation tells us we are inseparable. It feels as though we are a musician, playing a beautiful and complex piece of music. But the science suggests that we are the music, and that the music can only be played by one specific, intricate instrument, the brain. If a string on the instrument snaps, a key sticks, or the wood itself warps, the music changes. It becomes distorted, or perhaps A new, unfamiliar melody emerges. The music is not the wood and strings, but it cannot exist without them. So, where does this leave our ghost? Perhaps the metaphor was wrong from the start. What if the self is not a ghost in the machine, but the music the machine plays? What if consciousness is not an entity that inhabits the brain, but a process that the brain performs? An emergent property, like the wetness of water, which arises from the interaction of countless individual molecules, yet is something more than any single one of them. This doesn't make the self any less real, or any less magical. In fact, it might make it more so. It suggests that the everyday miracle of your own consciousness, the feeling of being you right now, is the result of an impossibly complex dance of biological components. The ghost is not an observer watching the brain from a distance. It is the pattern, the harmony, the unified resonance of the entire system working in concert. It is the echo of 100 billion neurons whispering together. It is the symphony that the orchestra of the brain plays, and the symphony's name is you. Let's not see this as a demotion of the self, but as an elevation of the body. It means this physical form is not just a temporary container. It is the enchanted loom. It is the miraculous instrument. The very flesh and blood of you is the stuff that dreams are made on. And the ghost is the dream it is dreaming. Section 4. A symphony of 100 billion neurons. If the self is the music, let us now step into the concert hall and listen. Let us imagine we can shrink ourselves down to a size smaller than a dust mote and drift silently into the living architecture of your brain. Here, in the warm, pulsing darkness, we find ourselves in the midst of the most complex orchestra in the universe, an orchestra composed of 100 billion musicians. Each musician is a single neuron. A single neuron on its own is a beautiful but simple thing. It is a cell, like any other in your body, but with a unique and magical ability. It can listen, it can integrate, and it can speak. It listens through its branching dendrites, like a tree spreading its roots into the soil, receiving chemical messages from thousands of other neurons. It gathers these messages, these whispers and shouts from its neighbors, inside its cell body. And when the chorus of incoming signals reaches a certain threshold, a critical point of excitement, something extraordinary happens. The neuron fires. This firing is a moment of pure, electrical poetry. A wave of energy, an action potential, surges down its long, slender axon, a pathway that can stretch from one side of your brain to the other. When this wave reaches the end of the axon, the neuron speaks. It releases its own chemical messengers, neurotransmitters, into the tiny gap, the synapse, that separates it from the next neuron in the chain. And then it falls silent, waiting to be stirred again. This is the entire vocabulary of the brain. A single, fleeting spark of electricity. A simple yes or no. A 1 or a 0. On its own, a single neuron firing is a meaningless blip. It is a single note played in an empty hall. It contains no thought, no feeling, no consciousness. It is just a spark.
But now, step back.
Do not focus on the single musician. Gaze upon the entire orchestra. 100 billion neurons, and each one connected to thousands of others, forming a network of connections so vast that the number is beyond our human ability to truly comprehend. There are more connections in this single brain of yours than there are stars in our Milky Way galaxy. It is a web of infinite intricacy. And now listen. The orchestra is never silent. Even now, as you rest, it is playing. Millions of neurons are firing every second, in vast, coordinated, and ever-shifting patterns. They fire in synchronized waves that sweep across the surface of your cortex, like wind across a field of wheat. They form stable, repeating loops that hum with the memory of a familiar face. They erupt in sudden, chaotic bursts in response to an unexpected sound. This is the symphony. It is not random noise. It is a composition of staggering complexity, a living piece of music that is constantly evolving, constantly rewriting itself with every new experience, every new thought. And somewhere within this unimaginably complex pattern of firing neurons, you emerge. Your sense of self is not a single neuron. It is not a special consciousness module in the brain. Instead, neuroscientists now believe the self is an emergent property of the entire system. It is like the traffic in a great city. If you look at one car, you just see a vehicle moving from A to B. But when you look at the entire city from above, you see something new: traffic jams, rush hour, the pulse and flow of the city as a whole. No single car is the traffic. The traffic is the collective, dynamic pattern of all the cars. So it is with your consciousness. Your experience of the color blue is not located in one place. It is a specific pattern of firing, a particular chord played by millions of neurons across different regions of your brain, all resonating together in harmony. The memory of your childhood home is another chord, another unique pattern of synchronized firing that links visual centers, emotional centers, and narrative centers. And the self? The feeling of being the continuous, unified I at the center of your experience? It may be the grandest, most stable, and most persistent pattern of them all. It is a standing wave in the chaotic sea of neural activity. A baseline rhythm, a recurring motif around which the rest of the symphony is composed. This self-pattern is what links the sensation of your body, the flow of your memories, the voice of your inner narrator, and your plans for the future into a single, coherent experience. Think of it like an eddy in a river. The water molecules in the eddy are constantly changing, flowing in and out. No single water molecule is the eddy itself. The eddy is the stable, swirling pattern that the water creates. In the same way, the neurons involved in your self-pattern are constantly changing. The connections between them are strengthening or weakening. Yet, the overall pattern, the swirling vortex of neural activity that you experience, as you remains remarkably stable throughout your life. This symphony model helps to explain so many of the mysteries we have touched upon. When parts of the brain are damaged, it is like losing a section of the orchestra. The overall music changes. The symphony becomes dissonant or incomplete. When chemical messengers are altered, it is like changing the acoustics of the hall, making the music sound bright and sharp, or muted and melancholy. During deep, dreamless sleep, the orchestra falls into a slow, synchronized, pulsing rhythm, and the complex melody of the self fades away, only to re-emerge as the brain awakens and the musicians begin to play their intricate parts once more. And in moments of deep meditation or profound awe, when the sense of a separate self seems to dissolve, it may be that the dominant, recurring self-pattern temporarily quiets down. The eddy smooths out. The musicians stop playing that familiar, central theme and instead join in a grander, more unified chord with the rest of the world. For a moment, you are not just the melody, you are the entire symphony. This is a humbling and profoundly beautiful image. It means that you are not a thing but a pattern. You are not a substance, but a song. The very essence of who you are is written in the silent, invisible language of light and electricity, a fleeting and dynamic dance taking place in the sacred darkness of your own mind. You are the music that matter makes when it becomes complex enough to wonder about itself. Let the wonder of that thought cradle you. You are a symphony of starlight, housed in bone, and the music is just beginning. Section 5. The ever-flowing river of memory. If you are the symphony, this ever-unfolding piece of music, then what is the score from which it is played? The answer lies in the deep, shimmering waters of your memory. Your identity is not built on the bedrock of a solid, unchanging soul, but is instead delicately suspended in the currents of a vast and ever-flowing river. This is the river of your memory, and its waters are the substance of who you are. Pause for a moment and ask yourself a quiet question. Who would you be without your memories? If you were to awaken tomorrow with no recollection of your past, no memory of your name, your loved ones, your triumphs, your heartaches, the places you have been, the person you have strived to become, what would be left of you? The body would remain, the machine would still function, but the ghost, the self, the story you know as your own, would have vanished. You are not a being that has memories, you are a being that is made of memories. Let's wade into this river together. It is not like a library of neatly bound books, each one a perfect record of an event. It is far more alive, more fluid, more mysterious than that. We tend to think of memory as a recording device, but it is much more like a poet or a painter. It does not capture the past. It interprets it. Every time you recall a memory, you are not simply playing back a video. You are performing a delicate act of reconstruction. Fragments of that past event, a sliver of sight, a whisper of sound, a phantom scent, a wave of emotion are stored in different regions all across the vast landscape of your brain. When you remember, your brain, guided by that master gatekeeper called the hippocampus, sends out a call across these disparate regions. It says, gather the pieces of that summer afternoon from 20 years ago. And from all corners of the neural orchestra, the musicians play their notes. The visual cortex offers the dappled sunlight through the leaves. The auditory cortex provides the distant hum of a lawnmower. The limbic system, your emotional heartland, recreates the feeling of youthful peace. And here is the magic. Your brain weaves these scattered threads back together into a coherent whole. It creates a tapestry that you experience as a memory. But notice, it is a recreation. And in the act of recreation, the story can change. The storyteller we met earlier cannot resist adding a little color, a little touch of its present mood. If you recall a happy memory when you are feeling sad, the memory itself can become tinged with a faint nostalgia, a bittersweet quality it didn't have before. When you recall it again later, that new, sad flavor may now be part of the official story. This is a scientifically observed phenomenon called reconsolidation. Every time a memory is brought into the light of your consciousness, it becomes soft and malleable, like clay. It is briefly open to revision before it hardens again into storage. This means your past is not fixed. You are not just remembering your past. You are in a constant, flowing dialogue with it. You are co-authoring the story of your life with every act of recollection. The river of your memory is always flowing, always changing its course. Some memories are like swift, clear currents at the surface: what you ate for breakfast, the conversation you had this morning. They are easy to access but flow by quickly, often vanishing into the great ocean of forgetting. Other memories are in the deep, slow-moving channels at the bottom of the riverbed. These are the powerful, emotionally charged memories that carved the river's path in the first place: your first love, a moment of profound loss, a great achievement. They move slowly. They define the shape of your personal landscape, and they powerfully influence the flow of all the other currents above them. But much of the river is murky. Vast stretches of your life have flowed by, unremembered. Years of your childhood are reduced to a handful of snapshots. What happened on this exact date, 3 years ago? For most of us, that water has already merged with the sea. The self you are today is built upon a highly edited, curated selection from this vast, flowing body of experience. Your identity is shaped as much by what you have forgotten as by what you remember. The fragility of this process reveals how fragile the self truly is. Consider the profound case of someone who, through injury or illness, loses the ability to cast new memories into the river. Their river of memory stops flowing. They are trapped in an eternal present, an island of time from which they can never depart. They might be able to recall the deep currents of their distant past, but the surface of their river is frozen. They meet new people every day, only to forget them moments later. Their own story can no longer move forward. The narrative of I becomes a loop, a record that is skipping, unable to lay down a new groove. This tells us, with gentle poignancy, that a continuous self requires a continuous story. Your sense of self is the belief in the continuity of this river. You believe you are the same person who fell asleep last night because the river of memory flows unbroken from then until now. You believe you are the same person from your childhood photos because you can trace a current, however winding, from that child in the picture to the person you are today. You are the perceived continuity of the flow. So, the self is not an object, but a pattern held in water. It is a story told by a flowing river. It is a reflection on the Circassian image that appears whole, coherent, and stable, but which is created by the constant, dynamic, and ever-changing movement of the water beneath. The person you are right now is a confluence of all the streams of memory that have flowed together to create this present moment. You are not standing on the bank of the river, watching it go by. You are the river, and its sacred, living waters are carrying you, even now, into the quiet sea of what comes next. Section 6. The wisdom held within your body. For so long, in our quiet journey, we have explored the self as a phenomenon of the mind, a ghost whispering in the cathedral of the skull. We have pictured the brain as a magnificent king in a high tower, a solitary genius composing the symphony of your life. But this picture is incomplete. The king is not alone in his castle. The tower is not isolated from the kingdom it rules. It is time, now, to descend from the high chambers of the brain and walk through the living lands of the body. For the self does not end at the base of your neck. It extends into every fiber of your being. For centuries, we have been taught to think of the body as a vehicle, a machine that carries the precious cargo of the mind. It is the servant, obediently following the commands sent down from the headquarters in the head. But this is a one-way story. The truth is a conversation, a constant and intimate dialogue. The brain is not just a speaker. It is also a listener. And it is listening with profound attention to the wisdom of your body. There is a vast, intricate network of nerves, a superhighway of information that runs from your organs and tissues back up to your brain. The most famous of these is the vagus nerve, a wandering, branching pathway that connects your brain to your heart, your lungs, your gut. And here is a stunning fact. The vast majority of traffic on this highway, perhaps as much as 80 to 90%, flows upward, from the body to the brain. Your body is not just waiting for orders. It is constantly sending intelligence reports, status updates, and subtle petitions to the king in the tower. This ceaseless, quiet stream of information is a sense you are rarely conscious of, but it forms the very foundation of your reality. It is called interoception perception of your internal state. Right now, your brain is receiving a flood of data. The gentle rhythm of your heart, the slow, steady expansion and contraction of your lungs, the subtle chemistry of your bloodstream, the feeling of warmth or coolness in your limbs. This is the bedrock of all feeling. Before an emotion has a name, before it becomes sadness or joy, it is a raw, physical sensation reported by the body. Think of what we call a gut feeling. This is not just a metaphor. Your digestive tract is lined with its own complex neural network, so vast it is sometimes called the second brain. It is in constant communication with the brain in your head. That intuitive sense that something is right or wrong is often your brain interpreting a complex, subtle signal from your gut. The body knows, and it whispers its knowledge to the mind. Consider the physical reality of emotion. The ache in your chest when you feel loss is not an illusion. It is a real, physiological event. The fluttering of butterflies in your stomach before a nerve-wracking event is the result of your nervous system redirecting blood away from digestion. The warmth that spreads through your chest in a moment of deep affection is a measurable physical change. We say we are moved by a piece of music, and we are. Our heart rate changes, our skin tingles. Emotions are not abstract thoughts. They are embodied experiences. The self feels because the body feels. Your body is the resonant chamber for the music of your mind. A thought or a memory might be a melody played on the strings of the neural orchestra, but it is the wooden body of the viol in your physical form that gives the melody its warmth, its depth, its emotional color. Without the body, the music would be thin, tinny, and without soul. The self, therefore, is not just a storyteller but a feeling storyteller, and the feelings are born in the flesh. But the body's wisdom runs deeper than just fleeting emotions. It is a living chronicle of your entire life. It is a history book written in a language of its own. The way you hold your shoulders might tell the story of past burdens or of a lifetime of confidence. A scar on your knee is a physical chapter in your autobiography, a permanent record of a moment of childhood adventure and pain. The tension you carry in your jaw might be the unspoken words from an argument long past. Your body remembers, even when your conscious mind has forgotten. This is the home of what we call muscle memory. When you learn to ride a bicycle or play the piano, the knowledge is not just stored in the narrative centers of your brain. It is etched into your nerves, your muscles, your very posture. You don't have to consciously remember how to balance on a bike. Your body simply knows. It possesses a form of identity, a skill-based self that operates independently of your inner monologue. There is a wisdom in your hands, in your feet, in the way you move through the world. That is a core part of who you are. This physical form is the ultimate anchor for your consciousness. It is what makes the self feel located, present, and real. The constant background hum of bodily sensation, the feeling of gravity, the pressure of your body against the surface where you rest, the air on your skin, what grounds you in the here and now. It is the steady, continuous bass note that plays beneath the more flighty melodies of thought. Without this anchor, the self might feel like a disembodied dream, unmoored and adrift. It is your body that gives your ghost a home, a place to be. So, let us gently revise our metaphor. The self is not a king in a castle. It is the entire kingdom. It is the dialogue between the king and his counselors, the farmers in the fields, the merchants in the market. It is the land itself, with its mountains and rivers. The mind and body are not two separate entities engaged in a struggle for control. They are two aspects of a single, unified living system. You are not a mind that has a body. You are a mind-body, a thinking, feeling, breathing, living whole. Feel the truth of this for a moment. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your own breath. Feel the subtle, steady beat of your own heart. This is not just the machine chugging along. This is the rhythm of your own being. This is the quiet, steady song of the self, played on the sacred instrument of your own body. And it is a song of profound and simple wisdom. Section 7. Seeing yourself in the mirror of others. We have journeyed inward, through the intricate corridors of the brain and the living lands of the body, searching for the source of the self. We have found it in the stories we tell, in the symphony of our neurons, in the river of our memories, and in the wisdom of our flesh. But now, we must take a step outside of ourselves, for the self is not forged in isolation. The story of you is not a solo performance. It is a story that is profoundly shaped, polished, and even co-written by every other person you have ever met. You discover who you are by seeing yourself reflected in the eyes of others. From the very first moments of your life, this process began. As an infant, you had no concept of a separate self. You were a bundle of pure sensation, merged with the world around you. There was no I and other. There was only the warm, undifferentiated experience of being. Your sense of self was born in the gaze of another. It began when you saw your mother or father look at you, when their face mirrored your cry with a look of concern, or your gurgle with a smile of delight. In that reflection, the first seed of a separate identity was planted. You learned, I am a thing that can be seen. I am a being that can cause a response in another. This is the mirror of society, and we spend our entire lives looking into it. We are profoundly social creatures, and our brains are exquisitely wired for it. We have specialized neurons, aptly named mirror neurons, that fire not only when we perform an action, but also when we simply watch someone else perform that same action. When you see someone smile, a part of your brain lights up as if you were smiling yourself. When you see someone in pain, your brain simulates that pain. We are built for empathy, for connection, for understanding the minds of others, because our own minds depend on it. Think about how you define yourself. If someone asks, "Who are you?" you might start with your name, a label given to you by others. Then you might mention your relationships. I am a parent, a sibling, a friend. These are roles that only exist in relation to other people. You cannot be a friend in a vacuum. You might describe your job, a role that finds its meaning within a larger social and economic structure. Or you might talk about the groups you belong to, your community, your culture, your nation. So much of what we call our identity is a tapestry woven from the threads of our connections. The mirror of others is not always a gentle or a flattering one. A harsh word from a teacher in childhood can become a part of your inner story, a belief about your own capabilities that you carry for decades. The expectations of your family or your culture can feel like a heavy costume you are forced to wear, shaping your choices and your sense of what is possible. We internalize the judgments, the praise, the indifference of the world around us. That inner critic, the voice that sometimes whispers doubts and fears, often speaks with the borrowed authority of others. Its script was written, in part, by the reflections you saw in the social mirror long ago. But this mirror also gives us our greatest gifts. It is through our relationships that we discover hidden parts of ourselves. A loving partner might see a strength in you that you never recognized. A good friend can reflect your own courage back to you in a moment of fear. Through disagreements and conflicts, we are forced to define our boundaries, to understand what we stand for, to clarify our own values. In these moments of friction, the shape of the self is honed and polished. Consider the profound act of being truly seen and accepted by another person. In that moment of connection, the self feels not just real, but affirmed. It is as if another person has walked through the halls of your inner world and said, "Yes, I see you. I understand. You are not alone in here." This experience of shared understanding is one of the most powerful forces that solidifies our sense of a coherent and worthwhile self. It is the feeling of coming home. The self, then, is not a monologue. It is a dialogue. It is a constant, flowing conversation between your inner world and the outer world of other people. You are constantly broadcasting a version of yourself out into the world through your words, your actions, your very presence. And the world is constantly broadcasting back to you, telling you who it thinks you are. You absorb these reflections, you react to them, you integrate them into your ever-evolving story. Even now, in this quiet moment of solitude, you're not truly alone. Your mind is populated by the ghosts of others. The way you think, the language you use, the moral compass that guides you, all of these have been shaped by your interactions. The very idea of who you should be, the ideal self you strive for, is often a mosaic pieced together from the qualities you have admired in others. This understanding is deeply humbling. It dissolves the illusion of the ruggedly independent, self-made individual. No one is truly self-made. We are all communally created. Our identities are woven together in a vast, intricate social web. The self is not a fortress, but a crossroads, a meeting place for all the relationships that have given it meaning. So, the search for the self cannot be a purely inward journey. It must also be a journey outward, into the world of connection. The ghost in your brain is not a solitary spirit. It is a social spirit, one that learns to speak its own name only because another spoke it first. It sees its own face because it first saw itself in the mirror of another's eyes. And in that shared gaze, in that space between two conscious beings, something miraculous happens. A self comes into focus, no longer just a ghost, but a person, standing in the shared light of the world. Section 8. The gentle dissolving of the self. We have searched for the self in the brain, the body, and the mirror of society. We have found it to be a story, a symphony, a river, a conversation. It is a powerful, persistent, and incredibly useful construct. But what happens when it fades? What can we learn about the self by exploring the moments when it gently dissolves, when the busy narrator in our head falls quiet, and the feeling of being a separate I melts away? These moments, far from being a loss, can be a profound homecoming. Perhaps you have felt it yourself, even for a fleeting second. Maybe it was standing on a mountaintop, looking out at a vast, panoramic vista. For a moment, the chattering inner monologue ceased. The worries about yesterday and the plans for tomorrow vanished. There was no you standing there, looking at a mountain. There was only the looking, only the mountain. You merged with the landscape, becoming part of the vast, silent majesty of the scene. The boundary between observer and observed became porous, and a deep sense of peace and connection washed over you. This is the experience of awe. It is a state where the world becomes so vast, so beautiful, or so powerful that it overwhelms our personal story. The small, egoic self, with its concerns and its identity, cannot compete with the grandeur of a star-filled night sky, the thunderous power of the ocean, or the intricate beauty of a single snowflake. In the face of such wonder, the self shrinks. And in that shrinking, we expand. We become part of something larger. Or perhaps you have touched this state through deep focus, a state of flow. You might be an artist lost in your painting, a musician lost in your music, a programmer lost in code, or a gardener lost in the simple act of tending to the earth. Time seems to disappear. Your sense of self-consciousness evaporates. You are not doing the activity. You are the activity. The hand that holds the brush moves without conscious command. The fingers that play the notes seem to have a wisdom of their own. In these moments, the storyteller self, the CEO in the brain, has stepped aside and let the symphony play itself. The result is not chaos, but a state of effortless performance and profound joy. These states are not just poetic fancy, they are observable phenomena in the brain. Neuroimaging studies of people in deep meditative states, or under the influence of certain psychedelic substances that are known to dissolve the ego, reveal a fascinating pattern. An area of the brain known as the default mode network, DMN, becomes significantly less active. The DMN is a network of brain regions that is most active when we are not focused on the outside world, when we are mind-wandering, thinking about ourselves, worrying about the future, or ruminating on the past. Think of the default mode network as the neurological home of the storyteller. It is the orchestra section that is constantly playing the me song. It is the narrative machinery that stitches together our past, present, and future into a coherent personal story. When this network quiets down, the story stops. The persistent feeling of being a separate, historical self, distinct from the rest of the world, is reduced. The river of memory slows, and the eddy of the ego smooths out into the broader current of pure awareness. This is the goal of many ancient contemplative practices. For thousands of years, meditators have sat in silence, not to achieve anything, but to practice letting go. They gently observe their thoughts, their feelings, their sensations, without identifying with them. The practice is to learn that you are not your thoughts. You are the sky, and thoughts are just clouds passing through. By cultivating this observer consciousness, they learn to unhook themselves from the endless story of the self. They're not trying to kill the ego, but to befriend it, to see it for what it is, a useful, but not all-encompassing part of the mind. In this quiet space, a different kind of self can emerge. It is not the historical, narrative self, but a self of pure being. It is the quiet, luminous awareness that exists behind the thoughts. It is the silent listener who hears the inner monologue. It is the still, empty space of the theater in which the play of your life unfolds. This awareness self is not defined by memories, roles, or accomplishments. It has no story. It is simply present, here,
Now.
and what remains when the egoic self is quiet? A sense of profound peace. A feeling of deep connection to all things. The anxieties that are so often tied to protecting and promoting our personal story fall away. The fear of failure, the need for approval, the rumination over past mistakes, all of these are burdens carried by the narrative self. When that self takes a rest, the burdens are set down. We are left with the simple, miraculous, unburdened reality of the present moment. Exploring these states teaches us that the self we normally inhabit, the one we invest so much energy in defending and defining, is not the whole of who we are. It is a tool, a mode of consciousness that is incredibly useful for navigating the social world, making plans, and learning from the past. But it is not our fundamental nature. Our fundamental nature may be something far more vast, quiet, and interconnected. This does not mean we should seek to live without a self. The story of you is a beautiful and necessary one. But knowing that you can, from time to time, step out of the story can be a source of incredible freedom. It is like knowing you can take off a heavy backpack you didn't even realize you were carrying. The journey continues, but it feels lighter, more spacious, and filled with a quiet sense of wonder at the simple fact of being here at all. The ghost in the brain is a powerful presence, but the greatest peace comes from realizing that sometimes the most beautiful sound is the silence it leaves when it rests. Section 9. The beautiful illusion we inhabit. When the self dissolves in a moment of awe, when the chattering narrator falls silent, in the deep focus of flow, we are left in a state of profound peace and connection. But then, quietly, inevitably, it returns. The story of I resumes. The familiar feeling of being a single, separate consciousness, looking out from behind your eyes, reassembles itself. You are you again. This gentle cycle of dissolving and reforming leaves us with a profound and beautiful paradox. The self feels like the most real, solid, and continuous thing in our universe, yet we have seen that it can vanish. It feels fundamental, yet it is fragile. How can something be both the very center of our world and, at the same time, an optional presence? This question leads us to perhaps the most elegant and initially unsettling idea in our entire journey, that the self is an illusion. Now, let the word illusion land gently. In our everyday language, an illusion is a trick, a falsehood, a deception. But in the language of neuroscience and philosophy, an illusion is something far more wondrous. It is not a lie, it is a masterpiece of creation. It is the brain's way of taking an impossibly complex reality and creating a simplified, useful, and beautiful version of it for us to experience. Think of the world of color. The color red does not exist out there in the world. Out there are only wavelengths of light, invisible waves of electromagnetic energy vibrating at a certain frequency. Your brain receives this raw data through your eyes, and in a flash of breathtaking artistry, it translates that specific frequency into the rich, vibrant, and emotionally resonant experience of red. The redness is an illusion, a creation of your mind, but it is a profoundly useful one. It helps you distinguish a ripe berry from a green leaf, a warning light from a safe one. The illusion is not false. It is a functional and beautiful interpretation of reality. The self, many scientists and thinkers now believe, is an illusion of this same magnificent kind. The underlying reality is the chaotic, buzzing, incomprehensibly complex symphony of 100 billion neurons firing. It is the ceaseless river of memory, the ever-shifting landscape of the body, the endless dialogue with the social world. This is the raw data. And your brain, the master artist, takes all of this and creates a wonderfully simple, elegant user interface. That user interface is the feeling of being a single, unified I. Imagine your brain and body as a computer of unimaginable power. The self is its operating system. You don't need to know about the billions of calculations happening in the processor or the flow of electricity through the circuits. You just interact with the simple icons on the screen. The feeling that I made a choice is the click of the mouse. The sense of your personal history is the neat folder of your documents. The feeling of a unified self is the clean, stable desktop that all the programs run on. It is a brilliant simplification, a cognitive tool that allows you, the user, to operate this complex biological machine without being overwhelmed by its inner workings. Why would evolution go to the trouble of creating such an elaborate illusion? For one simple reason: survival. A creature that possesses a stable sense of self has a staggering advantage. This I becomes a central point of reference. It allows for future planning. I am hungry now, so I should find food for later. It allows for learning from the past. The last time I did that, it ended badly, so I will not do it again. It creates a single CEO for the vast corporation of the body, someone to take responsibility and make executive decisions that benefit the whole system. This illusion is also the bedrock of our social lives. As we saw, we are profoundly social creatures. A stable self allows you to build a reputation, to make promises, to be a reliable and predictable partner, parent, or friend. Society itself is built upon the shared illusion that we are all continuous individuals, the same you today that we were yesterday and will be tomorrow. It is the glue that holds our relationships and our civilizations together. So, to call the self an illusion is not to say that you do not exist. You are most certainly here, breathing, feeling, experiencing. Rather, it is to say that the way you experience yourself as a single, separate, continuous entity living inside your head is a clever and beautiful story, a piece of cognitive art painted by your brain. You are not the little pilot in the cockpit. You are the entire plane, the pilot, the journey, and the sky it flies through, all experienced through the simplified and elegant fiction of a singular pilot. Letting this idea sink in can be incredibly liberating. If the self is a story, you can learn to become a more conscious and compassionate author. You do not have to believe every dramatic pronouncement of your inner narrator. When the inner critic arises, you can see it not as a fundamental truth about who you are, but as a faulty bit of programming, a part of the illusionary interface that is trying, in its clumsy way, to keep you safe. You can develop a sense of lightness, of playfulness, around your own identity. You are not a fixed stone statue, you are a story in progress, and you have some say in how it is told. This understanding also dissolves the fear that science is somehow diminishing us, that by explaining the mechanics of the mind, it is stealing its magic. The truth is quite the opposite. Is a rainbow less beautiful because we understand the physics of light refracting through water droplets? No. The understanding adds a new layer of wonder to its beauty. In the same way, knowing that the self is a neurological creation does not make it less precious. It makes it more so. It means that in every waking moment, your brain is performing an ongoing miracle. It is spinning the glorious illusion of you out of the silent, dark matter of its own being. The ghost in your brain is not a pre-existing spirit that was inserted into the machine. The ghost is the beautiful, shimmering, and life-sustaining mirage that the machine itself has learned to generate. It is a dream that has arisen within the matter of the universe, and that dream is you. And to be a conscious illusion, a dream that has become aware of itself, is perhaps the most mysterious and wonderful state of being imaginable. Section 10. To live within the grand mystery. And so our long, quiet journey brings us to a place of profound and gentle mystery. We have searched for the origin of the self, following its trail through the silent electrical storms of the brain, the flowing river of memory, the wisdom of the body, and the mirroring gaze of others. We have seen it as a story, a symphony, an illusion. And now, at the end of our exploration, we are left not with a single, simple answer, but with a deeper, more resonant appreciation for the question itself. Where does the self truly come from? The most honest answer is that it comes from all of these places, and from none of them alone. It is a masterpiece woven from countless threads. It is the story that emerges when a brain becomes complex enough to narrate its own existence. It is the music that arises when 100 billion neurons play in concert. It is the reflection that appears when a body of memory and feeling meets the mirror of the world. The self is not a thing to be found in one location, like a pearl in an oyster. It is the shimmering, iridescent quality of the entire living oyster itself. To live with this understanding is to live with the sense of continuous wonder. It is to release the need for a final, concrete definition of who you are, and instead, to embrace the truth that you are an ongoing process, a beautiful becoming. You are not a static noun, but a dynamic verb. You are not a finished portrait, but an artist in the midst of creating a life. This is not a state of confusion, but a state of freedom. It gives you permission to change, to grow, to let go of old versions of yourself that no longer serve you, and to write new, more compassionate chapters in your story. Embracing this mystery changes your relationship with the voice in your head. You can learn to listen to it with a gentle, friendly curiosity, rather than taking it as the absolute truth. You can see it as the brain storyteller, doing its best to create a coherent plot, and you can smile at its dramatic flourishes and its anxious predictions. You are not the voice. You are the loving awareness that hears the voice. You are the spacious silence in which the story of your life is being told. This journey also changes our relationship with our own bodies. We no longer see them as mere vehicles, but as the sacred, living instrument through which the music of ourself is played. We can learn to listen to its subtle wisdom, the language of feeling, intuition, and sensation. To care for your body, to give it rest and nourishment, is not a superficial act. It is a way of tending to the very soil from which your consciousness grows. It is an act of reverence for the physical miracle that allows you to be here. And finally, this understanding changes our relationship with each other. If we see our own self as a fluid, emergent, and socially created process, we can look upon others with greater compassion. We can see that they, too, are living within a complex story, a symphony of their own making. We can understand that their actions and beliefs are not the product of a fixed, unchanging essence, but the result of a lifetime of conditioning, memory, and connection. It dissolves the hard lines between me and you, and reveals a shared human condition. We are all beautiful, fragile, and interdependent illusions, dreaming ourselves into being together. So, the ghost in your brain is not a problem to be solved. It is a mystery to be lived. It is the great, central koan of your existence. To be a self is to be a question that answers itself anew in every moment. It is to be a fleeting pattern of starlight and electricity that has been given the astonishing gift of knowing its own name, of feeling its own heart, of wondering at its own existence. The search for who you are does not end here. It continues with every breath you take, with every beat of your heart. But perhaps the search is not about finding a final destination. Perhaps the search is the destination. Perhaps the purpose of being a self is simply to experience the profound, ongoing, and endlessly fascinating journey of being a self. To live inside this beautiful mystery with an open heart and a quiet mind is perhaps the greatest peace we can ever know. As our time together this evening comes to a close, let the echoes of this journey settle around you like soft, fallen leaves. There are no conclusions to be reached, no final truths to be grasped. There is only the quiet invitation to rest in the beautiful uncertainty of it all. You are a living mystery, a story being written, a song being sung. And that is more than enough. It is, in fact, everything. Let this sense of wonder be your gentle lullaby tonight. Let it cradle you as you drift into the quiet, boundless space of sleep, where all stories dissolve and all questions come to rest.
Sleep well.